Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Weston Jenkins. At just under 30 years old, Weston has already made significant waves in the industry. His deep roots in ranching, instilled by a family legacy spanning over half a century, have given him a unique insight into the market. In 2023, Weston was honored as one of the National Association of Realtors 30 Under 30, recognizing him as one of the top young real estate professionals in the nation. His expertise in farm and ranch properties has earned him a spot in the San Antonio Business Journal's top 10 farm and ranch real estate agents for 3 consecutive years, most recently breaking into the top 5. With over $131 million in gross sales in just 3.5 years, Weston's success is matched only by his commitment to giving back. He's the founder of Disabled Outdoorsmen USA, Inc., an organization that empowers individuals with disabilities through outdoor experiences. Combining his small town values, ranch hand experience, and sharp business acumen, Weston represents the future of ranch real estate. Weston, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Kendall, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. So excited to have you on. I know that you are a wealth of knowledge, and I know that so many investors love hearing from the agent side of things. So let's jump right in. How did you get started in working in the farm and ranch industry?
Yeah, I'll tell you, my grandpa, he started our brokerage, Kendall, back in 1971. He started out selling rice farms and turf pastures out in Beaumont outside of Houston. And so I've been around the farm and ranch real estate industry ever since really I could walk. So I got to see him on phone call, got to see him going to different showings. He'd show me different properties that he was listing. So from a young age, I was engulfed in the entire real estate market, specifically farm and ranch. And so once I saw what he was doing and I loved the lifestyle that it provided him and his family and what he got to do every day, and he loved to go to work to put his boots on. And I said, man, I want to do that. Really, from a young age, ever since I was probably 10 years old, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and that was farm and ranch real estate. So kudos to him for teeing that up and getting me in the industry that I love to be in every day.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love the legacy, the family multi-generational legacy that's part of your story. In your bio, it says that you've achieved over $131 million in gross sales in just 3.5 years. What would you attribute this massive amount of rapid success to?
I would say it's loving what you do and caring about the people that you're helping. To me, I put relationships over transactions. So whenever I'm assisting a client, they understand that I'm there to assist them in any way possible rather than just worrying about the commission. So I'm always saying, hey, I'll help you out with the commission doing this or credit them here or give them a concession here just to get them across the finish line. Because farm and ranch real estate, there's a lot of emotions involved with it because they're bigger purchases. And I think the more money on the line, the more emotion is included with that. So I think letting them know that you're there to help them from point A to Z and putting their matter over just the dollar amount that you're going to get at the closing table can set you apart from the industry. And I'm the first one at the office and the last one to leave. I'm still here. So I get here at about 6:45 and I don't leave till about 6:45, but calling and following up right now, the market's a little bit slower. So I'm really trying to solidify my prior relationships with my clients, checking in on them, checking in on how the ranch is treating them, seeing if they need anything from me at all, from contractors to different inspectors, just letting them know that you care about them rather than just, hey, I'm trying to make money off of them, I think is a big attribute to what I've been able to achieve thus far. And this year is actually going to be my best year ever. As we're sitting right now, I'm sitting at about 57 million closed and pending for the year.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. And I've spoken with so many people, some really just top-notch people in the industry, and they all echo that same thing, that when you approach this as a people business first and it's not just transaction, that's where you really start to make some significant things happen. You've mentioned a few different strategies that you employ whenever you are making it this people first. Can you dive in a little bit more? If someone's listening to this and they're saying, how do I deepen relationships with potential clients and sellers? What would be some advice that you would give those people?
I would say really get to know them as a person, get to know their family, get to know their background. Where are they from? What do they like to do? What are their hobbies? And really try to connect with them on a personal basis, almost trying to make them a really good friend of yours, not just asking about details of the property or how long they've owned it or what they've done to the property since they owned it. But whenever I sit down at a listing appointment, I try to get to know that person really well before we even dive into the attributes of the ranch or what it has or what the whitetail population is or what they've done to the genetics of the deer. I really try to get to know them as a person because then the next time I call them, I can ask them how their family's doing or how their mom's doing that just got out of therapy, just stuff like that. I think once they understand, man, I can connect with this guy. I want to work with this guy because people do business with people they like. So
Right.
I've come to know that. So I really just try to get on that personal basis. So I'd really just say diving into them as a person, individual, and their family, what they did, where they retired from, what they're doing now. I think carries a lot of weight and value. So just letting them know you care about them as a person rather than just, I'm going to try to sell this property for them. Because then you can connect with them on different paths and different avenues through the transaction.
Yeah, that's really insightful. So, the majority of the people that are listening to this have some interest in the investment side of land, flipping land, maybe subdividing land, doing some farm and ranch stuff, working with agents such as yourself. So, I'm curious if you could go into a little bit about what is a typical pattern that you see in like the seller psychology that you're working with. What are their motivations? What are they looking for when they are looking to sell a large farm and ranch parcel? What does that look like?
I'd say right now, obviously during COVID, we had a land boom. We call it the COVID land rush. So a lot of those, most of the sellers are still expecting some of those prices, but that's unfortunately just not the case right now. So it's really just taking it back to the basics with the sellers and giving them an understanding of what properties have been selling for, say, in the last 5 to 6, 8, 9 months, rather than using comps from 2021, 2022. So I'd really just say sitting them down and letting them understand where the market is now with the given rates and where they're at. We just had a rate cut. We're expecting another one in September. So they have that in their back burner. But I would say just giving them a realistic expectation of what the market is now to let them understand, hey, I understand that this place could have sold for 500, 600 to $1 million more back in 2021, 2022, but this is the market now and this is how we need to do it. And this is where we need to be priced at. I'd say just really explaining to them that you understand that they can, why they think they can get that for the property, but this is where the property should be now. And here's the comps from the last 7 to 8 months. So it's really just trying to take them back and letting them understand in regards to the values, because it is tough in regards to being able to get an expectation on the market, especially people that don't do it every day. Man, my buddy sold his ranch down the road last year or a year and a half ago for 25% more than where you're telling me I can list it, or if it's a guy coming in off market, one of your only land fan guys going in and sending in a mailer and he says, man, my buddy sold his ranch 2 years ago for X. You're offering me this. And you say, yeah, I understand that, but here's why. Here's the data from the last 6, 8 months. Here's the A&M real estate data analysis of the market. If you look at the chart, the amount of sales that have happened from 2023 to 2024, it's drastically lower. It's always almost taken it back to the 1980s with the amount of transactions that have happened.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
it's really laying all that out for them to just give them a general overview of where the market is now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good advice. You mentioned something earlier about how lots of times, especially properties that have been in families for multiple generations, there's a huge emotional attachment to it. So can you talk a little bit about how do you work sellers through this sort of emotional attachment, especially when they're letting that skew the value of what they think their property is worth. So like you can show them all the data under the sun, but we know emotional connections kind of cloud judgment. So how do you work through that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I try to do is just, like I touched on a little bit earlier, is just let them know you understand why they want to try to list there. And it's blood, sweat, and tears to get the property to where it is now, because you probably got it in a lot worse condition and you've done a lot of legwork and you probably did it yourself instead of getting somebody else to do it for you. So you have a lot of blood, sweat, equity in the deal. But if you truly want to sell your property, this is where we need to be. And usually what I tell them is, look, I'm happy to list it there for a certain amount of time. I'm happy to try to get that for you. I'll send you marketing reports. I'll tell you how many phone calls, how many emails, even down to how many text messages that I've sent or received on the property. And if we're not getting any traction, I can't get anybody in the truck. Will you be open to listening to me a little bit on the price and we can work our way down? I'm not saying we have to drop it to exactly where I'm saying, but we can do what I call the stair step system. So we can drop the price a little bit, pull it back, see if we're getting more activity. I usually base the list price on how many people I'm able to get in the truck and get out to see the property, because if it's too high, nobody will even come and look at it. So just letting them know, hey, I'm happy to list it there, but if I can't get anybody in the truck, I'll show you the amount of people that have inquired on it, so they have some data to say how many people have even seen it, people talking about it. So I'll send them a marketing report just so they can get an idea of, hey, I've talked to 25 people on the phone. Here's how the conversations went, and we don't have one showing that tells you they like the property, but they don't like the price.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Do you have a rule of thumb that you follow to gauge, okay, this is at a decent price. I've had this many showing on this number of days, so we're probably at a decent price. Do you have any like rules of thumb about that?
Not necessarily, to be honest with you. It's really just the basis on how many phone calls I am getting and what my conversion rate is on the phone calls. And I always try to dig, especially on unrepresented buyers, on their thoughts and input on the price. After I get through my call, I have a pretty, I wouldn't call it a scripted call, but it's definitely a call that's, rehearsed in
Yeah.
regards to understanding what they're looking for, what they like about the property, what they don't like, and then what they're looking for if this ranch isn't a fit, because then I'll try to go find them and hunt something else for them. So the listing side of things, I really try to use as a referral source for unrepresented buyers, because
Yeah.
I've converted a lot of unrepresented buyers. That's just a little bit too much. I'm like, well, what are you looking for? What's important to you? Where do you want to be? What all counties are you interested in? Do you want something with improvements? Do you want something with live water, surface water? All those, all that information, then I put it in my CRM, and then my CRM reminds me every 3 days I can put them from a hot, medium to a cold lead. And so my CRM reminds me, and then I have my notes in there. When I have, as I'm on the call, I'm taking notes about the conversation, how it went, what they're looking for. And so I can revert to that, call them and pick up right where we left off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So if you had to wrap it up in terms of a general pattern of seller motivation, what is there like a theme of the majority of sellers that you work with are looking to sell their properties because of XYZ? Do you have any, what are the most common reasons for people wanting to sell these farm and ranch properties?
I would say the most common reason is because they want to move on to a new place. They came into the ranch and they've done what they need to do, and they're looking for something that may be a little bit bigger. Maybe they're looking for something a little closer. They're getting a little older in age, and they have a ranch that's 5 hours away. Now they want something a little smaller, a little easier to maintain, that's 2.5, 3 hours away. Maybe they're running a high fence operation. They want something that's low fence to where you don't have to worry about the water, worry about the feed all the time in the game, because they're relying on you to provide the water and the feed because they're enclosed in a high fence. So I'd say the biggest thing is just really personal expectations and reasons for either a change in their life or getting a little bit older, need something a little more simplistic. And then we also see a lot of inherited properties with people that got this ranch inherited to them, and they don't necessarily, maybe they live out of state, or it's owned by a couple heirs and they don't really go out there, or their kids get a little bit older and they're not able to get out there because they're starting their own families and they're busy, and it's just something that's sitting there. So they'd rather liquidate and move on. So I've actually done 3 transactions on an air type of transaction this year, and I'm working on another one right now.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So speaking of like how you're finding these sellers, can you talk to us a little bit about how you go about marketing for listings? Are people coming to you or are you going out to find them? Is it a combination of both? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so actually in college, I used to sell whitetail deer, like genetics. And
Okay.
so starting out, I had a list of ranches that I would call on before I got into farm and ranch real estate. And so I'd call on these ranches. And so once I got into the farm and ranch game, right when I graduated college, is right when I got into it, I started hitting that list pretty hard. Just the contacts that I made from me calling them to try to sell whitetail. And I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I used to call on you to sell whitetail deer, But now that I'm in the farm and ranch real estate industry, if I can ever help you or anybody so I tried to really base it off of that when I started out. And then when I started getting listings, I would reach out to every single neighbor and I'd write them a handwritten letter and say, hey, I just listed this property, just got in the farm and ranch, would really love to help you down the road. If I can ever provide any assistance, do a broker opinion of value for you on your property, free of charge. Just try to offer them free services to where they're like, oh, this guy just really wants to help out. And so I did a couple of those free market evaluations. I would pick up a few listings and then it would snowball. And then I'd pick an unrepresented buyer up from one of my listings. And then they'd have a buddy that wanted to sell his ranch. And so he would, send him my way. But I would say, Kendall, probably 60 to 70% of my business is referral based.
Yeah.
Is referral based. And then just marketing myself on Facebook and Instagram. And we just hired a really good marketing manager at the brokerage. We're starting to do some new videos that we're starting to put out and put a little money behind those, just really trying to get my name, the brand, and the lifestyle out there of what farm and ranch real estate can do, what it can provide, what the ranch can provide for a family, the memories they can create, really trying to segment what the lifestyle of ranch real estate is and how it can benefit a family and what people can get from a ranch is really what I think has given me the success I have today.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. So good. And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about this is a people business. So when you're fostering these relationships, you're not just reaching out and saying, hey, can I represent you? Can I list your property? What do you need? What value can I give you? I think that's really solid. You mentioned about the broker price opinion, and I got my wheels turning a little bit. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of how you go about evaluating farm and ranch property?
Yeah, so I think farm and ranch real estate, it should really in any business, it's all about connections and relationships
Mhm.
with people that are in the same industry, but maybe not necessarily a farm and ranch real estate agent. So I have really solid connections with a bunch of different appraisers all over the state that I can call on and say, hey, man, do you have any comps around this size, this county, this area? This is what it has. What do you have? And so that way I'm not beating up, say, just one of my appraisers, but I can bounce around to the guys that are segmented in that certain area. And so I'll try to get, say, 5 or 6 of the recent comps in the area. And then I'll try to see what those are averaging, what the size is averaging, what those properties had, what the per acre price was of the improvements. I really try to value the land and the dirt by itself. And then
Mhm.
I'll back in what the improvements are worth by the square foot. So if it has a barn, is the barn just a pole barn or is it on a slab? Does it have electricity? Is it insulated? Is it blown in? Is it placed? So I'll try to take it down pretty deep for them.
Yeah.
And then I'll look at every single listing in the same county. What are they listed at? I'll try to give my sellers or at a listing appointment an idea of, hey, these are who we're going to be competing with. This is the size, average size. This is what they're priced at. This is what the raw land's priced at. This is what they have the improvements at. So I'll try to price it out from the land to the improvements, just so they can get an idea of, okay, this is where our listing is going to be priced with the other price listings in the area. And then I'll put all that information in a single PDF when it says broker opinion of value. And then on the top section, I'll have probably a 5 to 6 sentence paragraph in regards to my research of the area. And then on the back of that, I'll have all the comps and then I'll have a map, like an exhibit that I put on the back. And it has subject property and then it has all the listings in the area that are on the market right now, just so they can get an idea where they're at, what they're priced at, because we don't want to put something on the market that's 35% over the average price of what the comps I'm sending them or the properties that are on the market, unless it has exceptional live water, unless it's just a overall better place, which you can usually get a pretty good feel at just looking at it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Just make it super visual for them because a lot of people, you start talking numbers and feel like, I don't know what you're saying. So it's
Yeah.
great to see, make it visual for them. That's great. So jumping back over to dealing with sellers, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned the market and how the market has changed just in your career during the time that you've started. Can you talk a little bit about what specific changes you're seeing in the market today versus, let's say, 8 or 9 months ago?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the biggest things is the amount of phone calls that come in on listings is down. It's got to be 85%.
Wow.
Yeah, it has
Wow.
got to be 85%. Back when we had the COVID rush, in 2021, 2022, beginning of 23, you could put a property on the market and you could probably sell it within a month. They would just be calling you and trying to get, and it was almost just like a feeding frenzy. Now that's just not the case. Now we have to give realistic expectations. Hey, I think we could sell this property in 6, 7, 10, 11 months and just lay that expectation out because that's just not the way it is, unfortunately, anymore. There's a lot of uncertainty politically with the rates. They're not too sure what the rates are going to be doing. We do suspect them to be coming down, but a lot of people are just sitting on the high line right now, just waiting to see how the market unfolds, which I completely understand and get. I had $15 million fall out of contract the last month on just two deals. One was a pretty good size one, but it's just because of the uncertainty. But I'd say like what I'm trying to do right now is just keep my relationships I've forged the last 4 years ironclad, just letting them know I'm here for them, anything they want me to do and any information they need just to let me know. It's funny because right now, like I said earlier, kid, I'm on track for my best year ever, but I think it's because I'm actively reaching out and making the phone ring rather than sitting back and waiting for the phone to ring and really leaning on my CRM and calling people that I haven't talked to in say 10, 12, 14 days and just reconnecting with them. Because most of the time I call somebody for the second time and they're like, who's this? Because they don't have my number in their phone. I'm like, oh yeah, we talked last week about the property that you inquired on and wanted to reconnect with you and see if there's anything I could do for you. I know you said you were going to talk to your, wife or cousin about that property. And, I just wanted to reconnect and see if that was still the case. Oh yeah, it is. But we're looking for something a little smaller. Okay. What are you looking for? I'll send you some options, before 5 today. So I'd really say being proactive and not just trying to wait for the connections and the phone to ring is really what's separating agents right now, I believe. Because I've always been aggressive in nature and real competitive and trying to be in the top. And so I think right now that's just what you got to do. You got to
Yeah.
attack it, you got to want it, and you got to let people know that you're going to get the job done for
For sure. Yeah, no, that's really good. I talk with a lot of investors, and a lot of what they're saying is because the market is slowing down, they're starting to see a lot more sellers that are open to creative financing type deals. So, I'm curious if you're seeing that as well. Are you seeing people that are more open to maybe taking like payments or taking terms instead of one lump sum of cash? What are you seeing in regard to the creative financing?
them. Yeah, I've actually done 2 assumption deals this year where they were financing through, say, Capital Farm Credit or Texas Farm Credit, and the buyer is able to assume his loan. Say he got it 2 years ago at 4.75%. He's able to assume his loan for the lien that's on it, and then he can get a second lien for the leftover amount. So I've done 2 of those this year, which has been really beneficial because it's averaged my buyer, my clients rate out to 5.5 rather than
Nice.
a 7.25. And I've done one seller finance this year as well, but it was a 1 year balloon. So
Okay.
it was a pretty quick payout. And then I'm working on another one right now. Nothing's set in stone yet, but the sellers were open to it. They were open to a seller finance with a 10-year balloon. So they don't want to
Nice.
get, I haven't really met any sellers yet that are open to a 25 or 30-year term.
Right.
Right now that we do have to get creative, like you said, on the financing side of things, really just opening up that box and seeing which route we can go and where we can connect the dots is right now more important than ever, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I would completely agree. So as an agent, how do you frame that conversation with your seller? Because I know a lot of people who maybe have only done a few real estate transactions like in their entire lifetime because they're not real estate professionals. They're not really comfortable or they've not even maybe even been exposed to a creative financing type deal. They just think if I'm going to sell my property, I'm going to get a lump sum of cash and then that's just how it's done. So how do you go about educating them? How do you frame that conversation to see if they would even be open to that kind of thing?
What I try to do, Kendall, is learn what's their goal after the sale of the ranch. And if they
Yeah.
say, I'm just going to cash out, I'm just going to go live my life. And then I'll say, what do you think about an owner financing situation to where if you're not going to be conducting a 1031 exchange that can ultimately try to save you tax down the road? Let's say you're getting 25% up front, you're paying tax on 25%, you're getting paid every month where you're not having to pay long-term capital gains on a couple $1 million, but you could spread that out over the life of the loan and then you can pay the tax on what you get spread out. If you can lay it out to them to where they can ultimately save money doing it this route, I think can bring a lot of value to them. But I think ultimately finding out what their end goal is they're like, oh, I'm a 1031 into another place. Then you ultimately know from that point that, okay, an owner financing situation is out the door. But sitting them down and really learning what their plan is and where they want to go with the money once they're done with the property, then it opens the door up to that conversation to just open them up to it. I wouldn't say just attack them with it, but just say, have you ever thought of an owner financing situation? They're like, no, what's that entail? And you can lay it out for them and how they can get, paid passively and how it's going to be ultimately saving them tax down the road. And obviously I'm not a CPA, so I can't offer tax advice, but I do know, and I've talked to my CPA of just the structure of it and how it can be beneficial for them down the road. So just trying to let them know that and letting them know what options they have on a seller finance, I think can really set people up for success. But I think finding out what their end goal is probably priority number one on that.
Yeah. Yeah. The beginning with the end in mind. I think that's brilliant. So, do you have any tips about how to broach that topic of, so what are you going to do? What's next for you? Or what are you going to do with the money? I know sometimes people can get a little, what do you mean? What am I going to do with the money? Like, how is that your business? How
Yeah.
can can you talk a little bit about how you like to frame that conversation?
Yeah, I think you can ask open-ended questions to get your answer without asking them straight up front, asking them blatantly, well, what's your plans now? You could ask them, say you're learning about their family or where their kids are from or how many grandkids they have. And you could say, oh, are you going to move a little closer to them or what's going to be your plan after you sell the ranch? And they can say, I'll probably buy another place down the road over them. They're probably going to conduct a 1031. Or if they say, I'm just going to buy a house and you're not going to be able to 1031 into a full-time residence. So then okay, they're probably just going to pocket the cash. Maybe they'd be open to seller finance. And then you could say, have you ever thought of possibly an owner finance situation that, that way you're getting cash flow monthly or quarterly or, semi-annually or whatever, however you want to break it down to them. But I think asking them questions to get your answer, open-ended question is how I would approach that.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good because, yeah, like you said, it goes back to that building relationship. If you can just build that relationship, they'll start giving that information freely, right? That's part of building the relationship, building that rapport. So, can you talk a little bit about how you like what your experience is working with investors, whether it's on the sell side, on the buy side? What has your experience been with real estate investors?
I'd say it's been fantastic, really. I love working with the investors. I love sitting down with them and learning. I honestly learned a lot from the investors on how they look at property, what they're looking for in the property, what their plans are going to be, how they buy a property with a plan A, B, and C. Plan A doesn't work, that can convert to B, and if B doesn't work, that can convert to C. And so I really like sitting down with them and learning what their structure is going to be and how they go about financing some of these properties, how they go about doing syndicate funds for some of these properties, how they structure the syndicate fund, how they pay their investors, what terms they're using for their investors. So I really learned a lot from them and I love working with them. So how they're able to, let's say, buy a property that's for layman terms, 500 acres, go in and appraise the property in 5 100-acre tracts. Let's say they bought the 500 acres for 5,000 bucks an acre, but they go in and appraise the 100-acre tracts rather than the 500-acre tracts. So they're buying the property in 5 separate contracts, not just one 500-acre tract. And so they're getting an appraisal on, 100-acre tract versus a 500-acre tract. And obviously the more acreage it is, the less per acre, the higher per acre. And so they're able to get an appraisal for say 8,000 an acre on the 100 acres versus 5,000 on the 500 acres. They're able to get $3,000 an acre over the appraised value contract price from day one. So say they don't sell one tract in a year, they can go and refinance and pull their equity out and use some of that money to go in and fix up the property or pull some out cash tax free and pay back the investors and maybe owner finance some of it. So it's just the way that they look at deals teaches me a lot. And now I've got on the side of buying and selling some of our own properties and learning from them and going in and owner financing some of our properties. If we're not going to be doing a 1031 or if we don't have a property within that 45-day period, we can go and possibly say put it into a rental property and then go and fix that up and then do the BRRRR method on that. So it really just opens me up to a whole new side of the land. Obviously, I love helping people buy and sell properties, but I'll say that the investor developer is just a different clientele a different animal, and they're all about the numbers. And if the deal makes sense and there's no emotion to it, it's just no, on to the next one. And so I respect that. So it's really all about the numbers and the data and the location of it and the access and what the property could be if it's not already where they want it to be. But there's just a plethora of different things you can do with land, whether you're doing tiny home development communities or you're doing ranchettes, 5, 10 acres, or say you're selling half of the ranch and lowering your basis, and then you can cut the other side into 5 or 10 acres and owner finance those tracts. So you got some cash flow coming in, but your debt's washed. So I love working with them, to be honest with you. I got a couple guys that I'm helping right now, and I've got one client of mine who he bought a ranch for 3,045,000. And we went in there and put a bunch of roads, put some water infrastructure. We put some more tanks. The more surface water and the more water on a ranch, just general rule of thumb, the more it appreciates in value. So the more water it has on it, the better. And so we just went in there and put as many water improvements as we could. And then it took about 3 months and we sold it for 4.5. He sold it for 4.5.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's really just finding the product and bringing the end product to the market that these guys that are coming out of Houston or coming out of Dallas or coming out of San Antonio and they've been working their entire life, they don't want to have to do the work. They want it teed up, ready to go, and something that they're not going to be overpaying for. So I think really knowing the investor side of thing of who is my end user or my buyer going to be is important. Because when I sat down with my client, I said, our end user is going to be, because it was just over 1,000 acres. I said, our end user is going to be a guy that wants a low fence, big recreational hunting tract, or maybe he can do a little duck hunting. The more surface water, the more the game's going to be coming in. So we put up some blinds and we put up some feeders. We opened up, a build site for them after the end of the show. And I try to time my showings, Kindle, to where I know the game's going to be moving or the sun's going to be setting, because then
Yeah.
at the end of the showing, I can take them to, the build site, or I can take them to that point. And the showings are calculated when I'm taking buyers out to the properties. It's not just, all right, well, let's go look at this place. I go out to the ranch and I try to learn it. Like when I'm working with the investors, I try to learn it better than they know it. And so it's almost like a basketball player shooting a free throw. That's how it is when I'm going out to show a ranch. It's not rehearsed and it doesn't sound like a tape recorder, but it's natural. I'll take it down to the point of which side of the truck I'm going to face them on which road is what I take it down to. So if there's a big oak tree or whatever it may be, I know I'm getting off topic, but I try to face them wherever the selling points are. In terms of the developer, I think understanding who their end buyer is going to be and pushing towards that is, I think, the key.
Yeah, that is so good. And I actually want to drill down a little bit more into that. So, when you are showing a property, when you're marketing a property on the sell side, can you talk a little bit about what is your process to do that? Where are you listing? What are some strategies that you use? Are you using drone footage? What's your sort of approach? If I say, hey, we need to market this property to sell, what's the checklist that you go through in your mind to say, okay, this is what we need to do to bring it to market?
Yeah, you bet. If you call me and said, hey, Weston, I got this property I want to sell. Okay, well, when can you meet me on site? I'd love to come look at it with you and you can tell me everything you've done to the property. And I'll go out there and, like I said, I'll sit them down, learn about them, learn where they're from, just learn everything I can about them. And then I'll say, let's dive into the property. Show me around, show me what you want me to see. And so they'll drive me all around the property and I'll ask them the questions. I have a checklist that I go through that I take to listing appointments and just get everything out that I need to. Is the ranch under an MLDP program, which in Texas stands for Man Management Program, which is through the whitetail. So I'll try to get some information on the whitetail. But then when, we're coming back to the house, I'll run them through that checklist again, make sure everything's dialed in and correct. And then I'll call my marketing team and then I'll go down to the property, usually at sunrise with the marketing team, and we'll get the sunrise photos, the videos, the drone footage. I usually have two guys that come out with me. One guy focuses on the interior of the house and then I have an exterior photographer. But a lot of drone footage, a lot of photos, and we try to tell the story of the ranch. So we try to do like lifestyle videos, like driving the truck down to fill the feeder, driving the truck to the tank, or driving alongside the live water, or maybe even meeting with the client on site, just making it real personable, real relational. But we just try to tell the story. But I'll be at the ranch before I show somebody. I'll probably get down there, say 3 or 4 hours early and just run through it, run through the sales pitch, run through my route have my maps, my brochures. And so when they leave, I'm giving the buyer a whole page full of brochures and documents and maps and different intel on the property to where now they can go home and they can sit down at their desk when I'm not talking to them about the ranch and just study it by themselves. But I usually try to have a ranch listed, I'd say within a week of when I get a listing agreement signed, just to let them know, hey, we're working on it. We're going to get it up as soon as we can. And we'll take it down, Kendall, even if, say, the ranch that we're listing hasn't got any rain in a while, but they've just got a lot of rain. We'll send a whole photography team out there to highlight the water features on the ranch. And then
Yeah.
we'll repost those photos. So just because you got the photos 2 months ago, we'll try to get it when the ranch has its Sunday close on it. So we'll resend the team out there, maybe go do another video, more photos. So we'll try to rebrand the listing through the lifetime of the agreement.
Hey there, land fans. If you're enjoying this episode and would like to see more episodes like this, please be sure to let us know by liking and subscribing below.
That is fantastic. I love it. You mentioned earlier about improvements, and that's something that I haven't heard very many people talk about. In the investor space, we talk about value adding through maybe subdividing, for example, right? So just forcing that price per acre up, getting that property a little bit smaller into smaller tracts. But this idea of putting water features in there, putting as much water in the property as possible to improve the value of the property. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of how you're seeing investors add value if it's not through subdivide? Maybe it's through improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the biggest two are water and accessibility
Mm.
around the property. Because if you can drive them around the property to where you're not showing them the same thing twice, it not only feels better, but it, shows a lot better. They can see more of the property. They can feel better when they're out there. You're not having to go, all right, we've got to turn around because we can't get through this road, where you're trying to drive the buggy or the Can-Am, whatever they're going to look at the property on. It's scratching the side of the truck. To an extent is okay. If it's not even seeable or showable, but just, I think, presents a bad experience for the buyer. And they're like, well, man, I'm gonna have to buy this and do a lot of work. I'm already stretching my budget and I really don't have a budget to come in here and clean it up. So I think understanding, like I touched on earlier, who your end buyer is going to be, and then trying to bring that property to a standard of what they're going to be searching for. If you have, say, a little seasonal creek cutting through the property, but it's dry, it only flows when it's raining, maybe you could say, okay, we'll go in there and we can dig it out, take it down to the limestone bottom, to the rock bottom, and maybe put some bentonite or some clay. Bentonite is just like another form to seal the bottom of the limestone.
Mhm.
And then we'll just, if depending upon how big the property is or what the water availability is, you can say, okay, we can pump 17.2 gallons a minute, which is the state regulation without having to have a permit. We can run a little poly line to this, maybe bury it, and maybe we can put it on a timer to where it's filling this tank, say in the morning and in the evening. And so now whenever they come, you can say, all right, guys, we got a guy come to look at the property. Let's get it in the show form. Let's turn the pump on and let's try to get that water feature going. And then you can turn it off and you can show them how it works and you can let them know, hey, it's going to be bringing game and birds and dove. And it's just ultimately a better experience, just getting the property to present and clean well and to a point to where the buyer comes and says, man, I can just build my house and get ready to go. Or I can come out here and I can 10 acres or 20 acres and a buyer just wants it for his little hunting track. He said, man, I could bring my boy down here and put a fifth wheel and that's all I need and a blind and a feeder and I'm good to go. If it's just a place that they can't even get around, I just don't think it shows very well to them. But
Yeah.
we say in real estate, less is best in regards to structural improvements for the developer and the investor side of things. If it has a house or something on it, don't be spending a lot of money on the improvements of the house because 9 times out of 10, you can't get your money out of it because they're buying it for the land itself. If it has a real nice house on it and needs a little touch ups, that's fine. But what we say is less is best in regards to improvement wise. So just getting the ranch to a really good showing form, maybe clearing some fence lines, maybe if a fence line's down, just patching it up and tightening it up, maybe putting some new barbed wire on it. Maybe putting in a new nice little entrance because curb appeal from the second they come onto the property, they're going to know if they like it or not within a minute when they
Mm.
obviously they want to come and look at the property, but I think the first instance they come and they park their truck and getting out and shaking your hand, I think maybe putting a nice little entrance in where you're going to be parking, you have the tailgate down, they drive in, they see you, and you're giving them an overview of the property, showing them the maps. All right, let's get started. So just having I think just a decent road to where you can get them around. It's not, if it's say, depending upon the terrain, if it's real rocky, you want to go in there and maybe mill some of that rock down to where I say you don't want to spill the wife's drink in the back of the truck, you know?
Yeah, good. That's good.
Yeah, so just going in and blading the roads, just making sure they're smooth to where you don't have to maybe pull a buggy all the time down to the ranch. And if you're showing them a property in the heat of the summer and you try to put them in a Can-Am or a buggy and there's dust in the back spitting up and she's trying to cover her eyes, she got a contact in. It's little stuff like that I think is very important as a developer. If you can say, okay, I can sell this 10-acre tract in the heat of the summer and I can put one of my guys in a truck and he can get them around, blast their AC, have them comfortable, have them with water in the back or whatever else it may be. But I'd say water and a good road system is key.
Yeah, that's really good. You mentioned earlier about you mentioned quickly about a deal that someone purchased, I think around 3 million and then put in water and then sold it for 4 million. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What were the numbers and how much did it cost to put that water in?
Yes, they acquired the property just over 3 million and it was just over 1,000 acres. And so we like to say in ranch real estate, what's the per acre basis going to be? And so we'll try to add up what all the expenditures are going to be with the roads and the surface development. And if you have to run electricity, do you have to punch another water well? The per acre basis on that, I believe, because he got it around the 3,000 acre mark was about 750.
Hmm.
And so he was looking all in improvements around just over 700 for everything with the water wells and the surface water. But I'd say the water development just itself was probably sitting somewhere around 250
Wow.
for the
Nice.
improvements on the water. Yeah. But you can take it to any extent you want. I think just staying within the range that you set out to be and just doing those features to the best of your ability within your budget. It doesn't have to be over the top unless the numbers just make sense.
Awesome. So, can you talk a little bit about is what's the most desirable properties that you're seeing moving right now? You mentioned that the market has slowed quite a bit. Is there a particular type of property that you're seeing moving in the farm and ranch area, a size range maybe, or maybe an area? Where are you seeing the most activity?
Say the most activity is going to be in like the Central Texas Hill Country area. A lot of the buyers right now are going to be like majority recreational end users. Our developers are taking a back seat and just waiting to see what happens because we do have some developments that we're trying to help sell and they're just not moving. We're just not getting calls just because people are just waiting. I think a lot of people are just waiting to see what happens in November, which I completely understand. But I'd say the range size, to be honest with you, is anywhere from about 300 to 1,000 acres is what's moving right now. Price
Nice.
points anywhere from 2.5 to about 7 million is pretty consistently moving. But I'd say anything really under the 2 million mark is pretty stagnant right now. Yeah, just because waiting to see what happens with the rates. But I tell my clients, I say, marry the property, date the rate. If the rates do drop, you can always refinance because if the rates drop, then the prices may try to increase a little bit. And then there's going to be a lot more competition. Right now, you can come into a property and you have a lot of negotiating power. You can come in and you can renegotiate with the seller, maybe try to get concessions or credits. But if there's a lot of buyers in the market, you're not going to be able to do that. So I think right now, right now is the time to find the deals. So being able to go, if the numbers make sense for you, I think right now you're able to get the best price and the best deals because there's just not as much competition. So you can get the credits and the concessions and you can negotiate more. But I think if the rates really start to come down, I think that's slowly going to transition from a buyer's market to a seller's market. But I'd say a lot of the buyers right now are all just recreational guys looking for a place with their family or looking to buy and looking to sell and buy something else.
Yeah, no, that's really good insight. And I love that. Marry the property, date the rate. I think that's gonna be a quote card or into that. Can you talk a little bit about what do you wish investors knew about the types of properties that you specialize in?
That's a good question. I would say Kendall really reverting back to who their buyer is going to be. I know I keep hitting on that, but that's more important than I could really think of what else to say because you're not going to be trying to sell something to something. You're not going to be trying to sell a pen to somebody that has, 50 of them. But if you get the property and you're say buying 100 acres and cutting it into 5 acre tracts in say southern San Antonio or maybe west of San Antonio, and you could say, okay, this is probably going to be a manufactured home community. So let's get it to be a manufactured home community to where these people can come out. Maybe you can put some little grill awning areas or gazebo areas for them to come and hang out and watch the football games or whatever it may be. But I'd say just on the developer side of things, just knowing who the end user is going to be and keeping that in mind and trying to bring that inventory to the market for that specific buyer. Because you want to be shooting a rifle, not a shotgun at your buyer pool. You want it to be dialed in, and you want your marketing dollars to be going far. Being able to market specifically towards who the property is going to fit, I think the phone would ring a lot more than just shooting birdshot at them.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. That end user is so important. So you mentioned your CRM. What type of CRM do you use, and what other type of technology do you like to use in your business?
Yeah, so always use Land ID. We used to be called maverick.
Yep.
Use that every single day. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners and your guys and girls that are a part of OnlyFans use that all the time. And then I use Monday as the CRM that I use.
Got it. Good.
Yeah, so I've been using that for about a year and a half. I think it's really transformed my business and my follow-up. And then I have a full-time secretary that really helps me out, just keep all my contracts in order. So I think having a really good system behind you is important, because right when I got in the business, I was trying to operate and run 5 or 6 deals at the same time. Just earlier this year, I had 8 contracts in title company at the same time. And so you got different inspectors, appraisers, you got surveyor going out to this place, and you got a recertification going on this deal. And it's just, you get bombarded with the different transactions. But I think having a really core system behind you, supporting you while you're out in the field, being able to try to get more in the title company is huge. You can't do everything yourself. I used to try to do it, and I just would let stuff slip through the cracks. I think a very good office staff, maybe just having somebody able to support where you're at with everything. But
Totally.
Land ID, County Appraisal District websites, Monday, and then a really good office staff. I think you can take it on.
Yeah, that's so good. Are you using AI at all in your business right now?
Yeah, I'm using AI. I use Chat GPT, ironclad in my ad copies.
Mm,
So I'll go ahead and write the entire ad copy, and then I'll put it in Chat GPT and I'll let it modify it a little bit. I'll pull bits and pieces off of it. I won't just copy and paste it, but
sure.
sometimes it has a little bit or better way of saying some sentences and paragraphs and how to structure it a little bit more. So have used Chat GPT on some ad copies. And if I'm reading a contractual document that attorneys wrote, or if I'm reading a title commitment, and I pull it and I can upload that document into Chat GPT and say, hey, tell me this in layman terms. Sometimes it can shoot it out to where I can understand it. And then if my client calls me, I say, we can call, your attorney, but here's what I understand on it. So being able to take those documents and break it down to where a non-attorney can understand it, I think is huge. So I do lean on it for that as well. Or if we get a document that's not redlined from an attorney, I can go in there and upload it, and then upload the original document, and then tell me everything that's changed from the first document to the second uploaded document. And it can go through every single change without you having to email that attorney back, wait 3 hours, and then it's past 5 and everybody's left and title company's closed. And then, so you can just get on it a lot faster. I think with utilizing ChatGPT, they always say AI is going to take over realtors, but I think using it to your advantage, and that's why you just got to be able to bring a different feel that maybe AI can't bring to the table. Personable relationship that computers and AI will never be able to replicate. So I think really honing in on that is going to protect those agents that find that important to the client.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, completely agree with you. So where would you consider to be, like, if you had to answer the question, what's the most common deal killer? Not talking about financing, but maybe it's specifically about the property. What do you see that is turning some of these, oh, on the surface, this looks like a really great property. And then once you get into it, you realize, oh, this is not as valuable as we thought it would be. What are some of the most common scenarios of that?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it has to revert to when we're reviewing the title commitments on the property and what the exceptions are and what those pages and volumes are associated with. Because there may be sometimes some long-term lease on the property that's not being able to be shown on the surface, but they have the rights to come in and say, mine the property at any time that was reserved back in 1961. And you wouldn't have known that just on the surface, but you have to dig through the title commitment and the documents and review that, or if there's some type of hanging mineral lease that was not explored yet, but they have the right to come on at any point in time, and there's no surface use agreement or no surface waiver, and my client's not getting any of the minerals or the executive rights, so they can't, or surface, so they can't control the surface, the rights of ingress, egress. So if they built their dream house, and then there's that leaning surface lease that's on the commitment, they could have a pump jack pretty close to their house. So I'd say a lot of it has to lie with the title commitment. That's why every time I get one from the title company, I'm like, all right, here we go.
Here we go.
Let's dive
Fingers
in.
crossed, hold your breath until we see that it's clear.
Yeah, let's dive in. But I always advise my clients, hey, get an attorney. I have 3 really good ones. I'll let you talk to every one of them. Have them review it. I'll review it for you. I'm not an attorney, so I can't go in and object on your behalf and try to clean this up. But I'll review it and try to get a basic understanding. So if we have conference calls, or if your attorney calls me, I have a general understanding of which exception he's talking to, which document he's referring to. But I'd say a lot of it has to do with the commitment. What is that going to uncover? Because the sheets are still on, but once that commitment comes out, they're pulling the sheets off the bed and everything's on the table. You just never really know what's going to happen. And if the seller buys a property and they didn't have representation, maybe they didn't even know about that lease, or maybe a wind turbine company came on and signed a lease with them 5 years ago and they haven't, executed that, but they still have the right to do it at any point in time. So there's just a lot that can be discovered there, which is why it's really important. I advise all your investors and your guys and girls that are a part of your company to get an attorney to review the commitments, and maybe they already do that, but I think it's a real important aspect, especially when you're dealing with land, because you don't know if there's a blanket easement through a power line company or transmission line company that can come in and put a transmission line right down the middle, or a pipeline company that can come in at any time. And so it's important to get that reviewed and just have an understanding of what the backbone of the property shows.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So you mentioned earlier, we've talked about how land is like a blank slate. You can it's open to your imagination how you're going to use it. And we talked about the importance of end use, and you mentioned things like having a tiny home village, things like that. What are some of the coolest end use cases you've seen in property, whether it's something that's not ordinary, like maybe it's leasing a large tract for, I don't know, solar or something like that? Do you have any interesting use cases in terms of how people are using these larger tracts of land to monetize?
Yeah, I've seen some people do. Kindles, they'll build like, say, a 5 or 7 acre lake and build little tiny homes around it and rent each tiny home out. And each of the tiny homes will have a little back porch on it, their own little fire pit. They can go out there and bring their wife or anniversary or their family or whatever it may be. And they'll structure some of those tiny homes they'll theme each one. So you got like the bass cabin, the whitetail cabin, the axis cabin, and make it a whole experience for them. Because you may have some people coming out of the city that they'll never get to experience something like that, because maybe they don't have the time, they don't have the effort, or they don't have maybe the money to go and buy a ranch, but they can take their wife out and go and hang out by a big lake on this little cabin that's themed like a whitetail and feel like he's on a big ranch.
Yeah.
So I've seen some guys do that. And up there in Fredericksburg, I've seen some people do like those Airstreams. So they take them back to the 50s and the 60s, and they'll take those Airstreams and they'll set up like the outdoor patio location. They'll have horseshoes, they'll have washers, just stuff for them to be able to go and take their family out and enjoy the outdoors. Because believe it or not, I think after COVID, that lifestyle blew up. Being outside, being with your family, being away from the hustle and bustle of the city. And so I think the industry that we're in I think it's gonna keep climbing up, even though it's a little bit of a stagnation right now. But I think it's over time, it's gonna keep climbing. And so I think structuring the property in a way with you can get really creative on these different aspects, but just offer them an experience to where they can come out, write you a review, you're building the clientele, and then you can just, get referral business. But some people will set up liability purposes, but gun ranges, skeet facilities, stuff like that, to where people can come out. They have a real long range competition for people to come out and shoot their guns. They can file a fee and get after it. But I think the beautiful thing about land is you can just do so many different things with it. I think it's really just, obviously you want to follow the county regulations and rules and regs, but if you're out of the city limits and you're out of the ETJ, you can pretty much do whatever you need to do. And I think that those areas are more desirable than something a little closer in, because they can go to the store, they can take what they need, but they want to stay on the property. So I think setting things up for them to do at the property at night in the morning, maybe have a walking trail for them, a little biking trail, or maybe set up a 2 to 3 acre lake for them to take their kid fishing, whatever it may be. But just having them to where they can stay on the property, they have what they need, and they can have fun with their families throughout the entire stay, where they're not having to go into town or do whatever you need to do. But I think that's going to help the developer not have to mess with getting the approval from the county and the stamp from the county, but just being able to do what they need to do, but just being outside the city limits.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I love that. And I love the creativity. There's so many things you can do with it, right? There's just the options and opportunities are endless. So I love that about land for sure. You've mentioned that you have a lot of different access to different people in the land industry, different vendors, different roles, investors, agents, appraisers. What's something that not very many people are talking about in the land industry that you think we should be talking about right now?
That's another good question. I would just say I would say the way the economy affects the way people look at land.
Hmm.
Yeah. Just because I think people, land is obviously it's like a commodity, but it's
Sure.
something that is, it's expensive, whether it be luxury or an investment purpose. But I think how the economy affects the land market, but being able to explain to the buyers that it's not like you're just spending the money. I try to advise my clients that it's like another bank account. So you can think of it as just putting it into a safe asset that's going to hold its value, if not increase over time. But it's something that you can go in if you're putting money in a stock market, something that you're just hoping, even if you're doing the research, 100% don't know what that's going to do. But if you can buy a property at a good price and you look at the comps from the last 6 months, real estate, the numbers don't lie. So you're able to go in there and increase that value over time if you want to. Something that you can go in and clean up over time and put the right improvements in to get it to where it needs to be. And I think it's a good safe hedge against inflation too.
Yeah.
Putting it,
Yeah.
put money in land. If it's just sitting in an account, it's just earning at 6.5 or 7%, whatever it was earlier this year, which that's a lot of money if they have a safe egg sitting in there.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good approach. That's a really good approach. So, what would you consider to be your superpower?
Man, I would say it's the way that I can connect with clients. If I get somebody in the truck and if somebody I've never met, say it's a buyer, I can make him a really good friend by the time he gets out of the truck, to where they know I'm not just trying to sell them the ranch, but somebody that they want to work with. Even if this place doesn't end up working out for them, they can call me and I'll help them and guide them and show them the ropes. I'm not the most analytical, number driven guy, but I can make just about anybody a good friend.
That's
And
very good.
I think people in this game, they want to do business with people that they like, somebody they can trust, and somebody that does what they say they're going to do. So I'll just say my connectability to the clients, really.
Love it. What's your definition of success?
I would say waking up every day and not feeling like you're having to go to work and going home and having a family that was happy to see you, but not taking your troubles in your work and the rain of the parade back home, I think is the definition of success, to where, hey, it's work, it is what it is. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to be able to do what I need to do, but not letting it drain you when you get back to the house. Wake up the next day and go after it again and love what you're doing and putting your boots or your shoes on and loving the people that you're with. I think is my definition of success, really, is just loving every second of what you do and not letting anything keep you down.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What are there any like thought leaders, entrepreneurs, authors that you really like to follow?
Yeah, I like listening to Tom Ferry. He's real good with agents. He's more segmented towards residential, but his methods and his insight on what he has with his follow-up and how he approaches things and how he structures, say, LLCs for independent contractors, something that I've learned how to file an LLC and employ yourself through the LLC and then pay yourself a salary. And then everything through the business you can write off through your entity, but you're not getting paid by the brokerage or the commission. You're getting paid by your company. So I have a set salary. I'm not
That's
making
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not making them, but I learned that from Tom Ferry, and then I hired a good CPA that could coach me and run me through that. Tony Robbins, definitely listen to him, especially in the morning. I try to wake up about 5:30, 5:45 and go to the gym and then go sit in the sauna. But I try to listen to Mr. Robbins on some different things and just life in general and what he can provide. Robert Kiyosaki is somebody that I also like to follow with his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Napoleon with Think and Grow Rich is another book that I try to read at least twice a year with the manifestation and putting yourself in that position before you're even there and already thinking and believing that you're there, I think is huge. So having that confidence that, hey, this is where I want to be in 10 years, but I'm already there mentally and acting like that every single day, I think can really put you apart. And don't think about, well, I'm way behind or looking at social media and these people are driving Bentleys and Ferraris or whatever it may be. That's probably least anyway, trying to get their
Yeah.
followers up, but thinking, hey, I'm here already mentally in my mind. And so I think that Rich or the Think and Grow Rich really kind of reminds me of that when I try to read it.
Yeah. I
So
love that. I love that. That whole mindset manifestation piece. I could geek out and talk about that for hours. It's one of my favorite one of my favorite things to
yeah,
talk about. But it's such a huge piece, I think. It's such a huge piece to like how you show up in your business, how you show up in your life, what you're attracting, how you are, like, right? It's so important. I love that. What would you consider to be the biggest surprise you've had so far in your journey in the land space?
I'd say it's a lot more work than I thought it was. I drive about 80,000 miles a year on my trucks. So I usually get a new truck every single year, but man, it is when I leave the gym in the morning, the sun's coming up. Usually I don't get home until the sun sets. So it's a dark to dark operation. You're on call 24/7. But the thing is, I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. When I was watching my grandpa and my uncle do it, they just made it seem so do it so flawlessly, but you don't really see the behind the scenes of how difficult one of these transactions really is.
Right.
It's really opened me up to it. But once I got acclimated to it and I started understanding it, I started liking the process even more, as crazy as that seems. But
Yeah.
my wife calls me crazy all the time, but it's just something that I feel like I was bred for. But really boils down to, Kendall, to my nonprofit, Disabled Outdoorsman. So we
Yeah.
started that back in 2017 for my cousin TJ DePere. He has muscular dystrophy.
Okay.
But him and I have always been hunting and fishing, being on ranches, on different properties our entire life. And I've seen from a very young age how the outdoors and being on a ranch out on land that we love and do every single day saved his life, prolonged his life, and he's still alive today. He's outlived his life expectancy by 18 years, 18, 19 years. And so
Wow.
he'll tell you it's because of the outdoors and he gets to go and hunt and fish. And a lot of people with disabilities don't always have that opportunity. So I was sitting down with TJ around the campfire at the ranch and I said, man, we should start up an organization to where we can bring people with any disability. It doesn't matter how old they are, what the disability is, male, female, first responder, veteran or not. I was like, let's just start something up and get people down. So we started it up in 2017. I was coming out of my sophomore year of college, hired a nonprofit attorney, didn't know what I was doing. But with the clients that I have now, I'm really able to grow both at the same time. I'm able to tell my clients about it. I have a license plate out there in the parking lot that has our acronym DOUSA. And the reason I did that was obviously to ride for the brand, but it was to set up conversations with my clients because about 7 out of 10 of them ask, what does that mean? And so
Mm.
I'm able to tell them about it without selling them on it because the clients that we deal with are getting hit with stuff every single day. People wanting to sell them this or, hey, donate here, or this nonprofit sending me something to donate to their annual banquet. But if it happens genuinely, and then you can go in and approach it, and I carry brochures in my truck and I'm able to hand them that. The farm and ranch industry is absolutely perfect for the nonprofit. And so I think waking up every day and being able to grow both of my passions at the same time. So maybe finding something that's personable to you that you're able to loop into what you're doing full time every single day can really put a whole new sense of urgency and purpose really into what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. What's your biggest goal when it comes to your nonprofit? Where do you see the future? What's your vision for that nonprofit?
We want to be in 50 states. We're in 5 now. So we're headquartered in Texas. We have a chapter in Minnesota, Alabama, South Carolina, and Utah. And so we want to be in all 50 states. The biggest goal that we have is to establish what we call the DOSA Ranch, the
Okay.
Disabled Outdoorsman Ranch. So we want to have the biggest handicap accessible ranch in the state. and to where we can bring people that are disabled, all walks of life, to come out and enjoy the outdoors, whether they're at the ski facility shooting clays, whether they're newly disabled, and we set them up with, our counselor that is able to take them out that's disabled too. And he can say, hey, I was in your shoes, you're newly injured, but here's how you're going to hunt again, fish again, shoot skeet again, go out and be you again. To almost have a disabled outdoors camp to where all these individuals are able to come over. We can fly them in, because right now I'm having to call my clients, or people are having to donate hunts, and we're having to send people to all these different ranches all over the state. And it's a lot logistically. So I think having a central hub to where we can say, hey, we got a 30-room, ADA accessible barn dominium. It's something like y'all have never seen before. Y'all come out and have the time of your life, and almost make it like a big camp for them. But what we found out, Kendall, is when they come on trips with us, it goes like harvesting of the game or catching the fish is just the cherry on top, but it's the camaraderie of the trip that they really carry with them, making it feel like they're welcomed and they're not different, and they're able to come out and just live free. So that's what I really want to try to establish with the ranch, is just almost like a safe scape for them to carry on in their normal life and make them better and more confident, and make them feel like they can do it. And hire people with disabilities working for the ranch, filling the feeders. Maybe we have somebody that's a double amputee, but he loves the whitetail deer. He just loves deer. And so we can hire him to manage the whitetail. Maybe strike a deal with Governor Abbott to people that are on disability. Maybe say, hey, instead of them being on disability, what if they came and worked at the Dosa Ranch? And then we can pay them through the Dosa Ranch for the work that they're doing, so they feel like they're offering something.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow, what a powerful mission. That's beautiful to see. That's really good. I
I
love that.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Listen, Weston, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and your experience. You've given so much to us today. How can we give back to you? What connections or resources are you looking for right now?
I love making connections with anybody. So if I can bring any value to y'all, I would say reach out to me if you're ever looking for comps or data, or where the hot centers are, or what a given market is. But I'd say really just reaching out to me and introducing yourself to me and just building a network with me is monumental. If y'all ever have properties that may not work for you on the number side of things, maybe sending my number to that seller or to that owner, and maybe I can set something up with them to sell the property, and we can get something taken care of there on that side. But really look at me as a resource and an avenue for all of your Only Land fans connection. I'd love to be y'all's resource to lean in on and connect with, but just getting me into maybe y'all's inner circle with clients that aren't going to work out on the sales of properties, or maybe you have somebody that needs to get taken care of on the buy side, whatever it may be. I'd love to be a resource for you. Like I said, referrals is about 70% of my business. Anything I can do there for y'all as well, you just let me know, because I have the resources to help you out with the data.
That's fantastic. I love collaborations. What's the best way people can reach out to you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram. It's just Weston Jenkins, Weston Jenkins, or Facebook, Weston Jenkins, LinkedIn, Weston Jenkins. I usually check that pretty frequently, Instagram, so they can message me there, or they can email me at weston@texaslandman.com. Or if they want to shoot me a text, they can call me at 210-215-3771.
Fantastic. And we'll put all of those links in the show notes. That way everyone can access you. So thank you so much. Thanks so much, Weston. I want to thank you. This has been absolutely incredible. So much knowledge, and it's fantastic to hear all about the land game on the other side, a different perspective. And so really looking forward to collaborating with you in the future. And I know that you're going to just be a wealth of information and a fantastic resource for our members. So thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to connecting with you soon in the future. And everyone else, thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you tune in next Thursday. We'll have another jam-packed interview for you. And so until then, take care, be safe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, Only Land Fans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.